concrete jungle where dreams are made of and there's nothing you can't do is how famous rapper Jay-Z describes New York, and I can't think of a better description for the city. New York has many nicknames. Some call it the city that never sleeps, some call it the concrete jungle, and some call it the Big Apple, which are all very fitting. There's nothing quite like flying into New York City, knowing or not knowing what awaits on the other side of those 747 doors. New York is one of, if not my most favorite place to visit because it is constantly growing and changing. Visiting tourist sites such as the Statue of Liberty, Grand Central Station, Broadway, and the 9/11 Memorial are all very awesome, and I hope everyone gets to do that at some point. However, there are thousands of hidden gems around a city like New York, and I want to share a few of my favorites with you today. Out of all the things I have done and seen in New York, I have a few favorites. Some are more popular and famous than others. At the top of my list is Lombardi's Pizza. Lombardi bakes their pies in a coal oven, and they were actually the first pizzeria to be established in the United States. It started in 1905. A couple fun facts about Lombardi's is that on their 110th anniversary, they sold full pies for 5 cents, which is what they cost on opening day. Along with this, Cake Boss star Buddy Velasco baked a 600-pound cake shaped as a pizza slice for the event. Next up is Chelsea Market. Chelsea Market is a collection of places to shop and eat for produce and food. Some of the history behind Chelsea Market is that it's located in the Meatpacking District in Manhattan. As you can probably tell by the name, the Meatpacking District has always been the center of food in New York City. The history behind this is because it is right next to the Hudson River, which is where many Native Americans would go to trade crops and game, and later where lots of butchers would go to cut huge blocks of ice to keep their cuts cold. Right next to Chelsea Market is the High Line. Originally, the High Line was created because the city decided it was way too dangerous to have streetcars on the same level as pedestrians in the largest city in Manhattan. The railroad was used to transport loads of food to other areas in the city, even cutting directly through buildings and factories. One of these buildings it cut through was the Nabisco factory, which is now Chelsea Market. As trains became less and less popular for short distance transportation, the elevated railway became useless and an eyesore. Lots of it was destroyed. However, the remaining part was advocated to become a public park, and they eventually remodeled it. Today, the High Line is a beautiful greenway with the view of the notorious skyline, as well as the Statue of Liberty, and it's filled with art and tons of species of plants. It's just under 1.5 miles long, and it's free to the public as it is a public park. In a few short months, I'll be making the trip back to the city, and there are a few hidden gems that I want to visit myself. One of these is the Knickerbocker Hotel, also called the Knick. At the top of the Knick are rooftop bars and restaurants, the most famous being St. Cloud. St. Cloud Rooftop is named after the original hotel that occupied the space. From the rooftop, you will see a breathtaking view of Times Square, and it is beautiful at any time of day and any time of year. Everyone who knows anything about New York knows that you would not necessarily classify Rockefeller Center as a hidden gem. Rockefeller Center is very famous for the big Christmas tree in the holidays, the ice skating rink, statues, and art sculptures there. However, what many people don't know about are the channel gardens located on the rooftops of the Rockefeller buildings. These gardens were put in 1930s, and they have a beautiful view of St. Patrick's Cathedral, which is just amazing in and of itself. Unfortunately, these gardens are not available for public access anymore, but if you climb to the top of the rock, you can see 3 of the gardens, and if you watch the original Spider-Man movie, you get to see 2 of them. The last hidden gem I want to talk about is Track 61 and the station it resides in. Those who are familiar with the New York subway system know that it is extremely complicated, but it's pretty easy to catch on to. Along with this, there are 27 lines named by letters and numbers. What many do not know, however, is that Track 61 and the station under the Waldorf Astoria Hotel were never abandoned, and in fact, they were used to store extra cars. Track 61 is still located under the station in the hotel, However, it's covered in filth and dirt and is very gross and not very pretty to look at. However, legend has it that it was used to transport a president who did not want to be seen in the public eye. According to the legend, President Franklin Roosevelt used this track to move his limo to the Waldorf Hotel garage many times, and whenever his polio was worsening, he would use the track to sneak in and out of the city to keep his sufferings out of the public eye. It's also been reported, although not confirmed, that when President George W. Bush had the track prepped in case of an emergency whenever he would have meetings at the Waldorf Hotel after 9/11. The only confirmation we have that Track 61 is still in use are the two brass doors located on the street level outside of the Waldorf Hotel. These doors are very hard to locate, however, because there are no words on them. New York City has countless activities and sights to see. The few I talked about today are simply my favorite. I am so thankful that I'm able to travel at such a young age, and I wish that everyone got to see just how magical New York City was. In closing, New York is scoured with all sorts of attraction, and as Jay-Z once said, one hand in the air for the big city.